Hey, I wanted to clear something up on this video you're about to watch. I do understand that somebody putting on another face is still under what's considered blackface. So when I was making my point, I didn't mean it in the sense of the subject itself. I meant more like blackface I normally associate with trying to hurt somebody or trying to do something without thought. So I guess I view things differently from a parody perspective versus a malicious perspective. When you see someone at a Halloween party and they're trying to, or like some of the I think it was actually some Democrats, but some political people, they're doing it. It's usually the way they're kind of doing it is kind of like in poor taste to a degree. But when someone's doing something of a parody, so for example, Richard Pryor, he has a white voice that he'll do, that he'll make a joke to be able to imitate a white person. Same as Eddie Murphy, Dave Chappelle. He technically has done it where he's dressed up and he plays a guy. I think he was like a news reporter, but one of my episodes that I love from the Chappelle show was when he when they did the husband trading swap, and he's like, oh, Lashonda, and everybody found it funny. Well, at least most people I know found it funny. But you're running into this thing where I don't view that when you're making a parody or you're making something to make a point or to do something to kind of, you're trying to imitate and you're utilizing something to do that imitation. You're addressing as the person, kind of like putting on the costume of that person to validate the joke of what you're trying to convey. Or you're putting on a voice and changing the demeanor and doing things. I don't hold that in the same category as straight on, I'm trying to show you this is how all of this particular race acts. This is how all this is. You might be creating something to do a differential. So that character that Dave Chappelle did, for example, he's not anyone. He's a caricature of the idea to show a difference between how one may approach the other. But there was always the counterbalance to that joke. It wasn't just, hey, it's all this. Key and Peele, same thing. They've also done it too, where they have dressed up, even though they're biracial. They have dressed up as Caucasian men. They have, but it was to show a point, to make a point. And it's usually the joke had a counterbalance to it. To me, Jenna Marbles, her stuff was a counterbalance as well. It was, she was doing something to imitate, but then she did close out the video with something else. Like, people sometimes will do something as a joke or a parody to reflect something or to show something, and they will dress or something to convey the idea that much more. I don't find that insulting. I don't find that completely wrong. Now, there's some times where it comes from a very deeper, meaner place, but I just don't see it that way. Now, I know there's people who disagree with me. I know there's people that are flat out like, no. And I want a conversation in the comments. Like, I want to see what people think. I personally did not have an issue with the Jimmy Kimmel thing, or a lot of people, because I love the movie White Chicks. And that movie, if you're going to go with these definitions, is technically whiteface. But I don't hear them getting it. But then you had the thing like with Robert Downey Jr., who was making a point of the level of how Hollywood, sometimes people can get that far in their own head. He was doing that to take something away. When someone's doing a parody, they're usually not taking a role or taking a part away. He was doing that to show how you can take something away from a black person or a person of color by being that race. But then yet there's been performances that were praised, like Willem Dafoe and Once Upon a Time in Mexico, where he actually played the Mexican leader. He dressed up, he changed his mannerisms, and he did these things to convey, because it's acting. And you're acting a part. I personally don't, I feel it's a bigger problem. I don't feel a person has to be gay to play a gay person. I don't feel a person has to be straight to play a straight person. One of my all-time favorite actors ever, anybody I know will know this. I have books and stuff of him. Neil Patrick Harris played a character I found to be very entertaining, which was Barney off of How I Met Your Mother. But in real life, Neil Patrick Harris is gay. So I think there's a line between acting and then between being, or, you know, acting and being malicious. Doing something to kind of parody or play up of something versus doing something to try to down an entire race of people. And I mean that for all races. There are mannerisms. There are things that each and every race, each and every person does. There are stereotypes. The stereotypes are coming from something. There are things that are just there. That's how I view it. Now, you can turn around and say, hey, I'm wrong. I would love to see the explanation. I want this conversation, because I don't feel people dressing up to do something like what Jimmy Kimmel did, or like what Jenna did, or others did, to parody, or what the Wayans did, or what Eddie Murphy did, or Dave Chappelle. I don't feel that is something that is trying to completely disrespect a race and completely destroy it, versus not only trying to get you to laugh, a lot of times they're usually also trying to make a point. So I just don't see it that way, but I would love to see what everybody else thinks, because my video, I talk about it for cancel culture, and I do say in the video that I don't see it as blackface, because to me, blackface is something a little bit more than just, hey, you put on this makeup to look like a person. Somebody, you know, did something to look like James Brown, to be James Brown, because they love James Brown. Now you're going to accuse them, well, you're doing blackface, but I'm being this person because this is a person that I respect and love. So I don't know. That's how I view it, but other people may view it differently. I really like to see it. So when you see this video, you're going to see me actually have a reaction and talking about cancel culture. Honestly, you may not agree with me, but that's just how I see it. But I want to hear other people's ideas and views. So cue the intro and get ready. This is the Geek Protagonist. And I just saw cancel culture basically strike again. This one with Jenna Marbles. She's like an original YouTuber. She's like, it was there from the beginning when YouTube has become what it's become. And you know, yeah, I have videos that I've done where I've talked about cancel culture, or talked about it, and it's going to come up a few times, so I'm going to give you a heads up now. Okay, so you know this is about that. She was talking about like things like she did like a Nicki Minaj video back in 2011 with her intention to just make a fun of, you know, make a joke about Nicki Minaj. And people, and I've said this in the video, but you're going to see it post later. You can't keep getting retroactively offended for things that were okay or people were completely fine with 10 years ago, 9 years ago, 8 years ago. Like, first and foremost, and maybe I'm wrong, you can tell me. Because I seen the thing with Jimmy Kimmel, I didn't really know what was going on, and then I looked, and it was something from like 20 years ago or whatever, where he was on Saturday Night Live, and he did Karl Malone. Okay, Here's why I have a problem with all the people that are complaining about blackface, blackface, blackface. A minstrel show, or the shows when they used to do these, and they made the over-exaggerated lips, the really dark chalk skin, the crazy, eyes and all that. They did that specifically to racially tear down black people and make them a joke as a whole. They also did the same thing to Asian people and many others in America. Yes. Now, if a person imitates somebody, and it is a person of another persuasion of skin, and they dress up as the person or they do something, and their intention is to be funny, let's say. If you're not offended from it back then or at that time when it was a little more acceptable, and the reason why I'm saying it's acceptable and the reason why I have an issue with this whole cancel culture situation is because, and I'm not saying it because I don't have a problem with it, but I want to point something out. I want you to go back and watch the Eddie Murphy SNL skit. I think it's called White Like Me. The Wayans brothers with white chicks. Coming to America. I don't see you calling all of these people out. I wonder why. If you're going to do these things, you need to be even across the board. This is the problem I'm having with cancel culture, and I don't care who you voted for, you're both wrong. The problem I have with this whole cancel culture and going back, you should not. So Jenna Marbles, for example, if you look at her from point A to point B to point C to point Z to where she is today, she is a different person because people evolve, they grow. But the thing with Kevin Hart, when Kevin Hart made jokes about the letter community back when it was more acceptable, now he did apologize for it. But then they were like, you need to keep apologizing. You need to keep apologizing. And it's like, I noticed that every time someone does something, especially in a comedic sense or something, people are like, well, no, you need to apologize for it. But then you've come to realize the content they did was years ago when it was acceptable. You can't keep taking your today's feelings for the stuff that happened 20 years ago. And if you're going to be offended by stuff like Jimmy Kimmel or Nicole, I think her name is Nicole Friedman, who does a wonderful impersonation of Cardi B, and a few other people, but she does impersonations. You're going to now be like offended by it. You can imitate somebody. People made their whole careers out of it. Billy Crystal used to imitate Muhammad Ali. You can imitate somebody. Jay Farrell imitates a lot of people. You can imitate people. If you're making fun of someone in jest, because every culture does it. If your intention is to just get a laugh, not to be like, well, I hate all these people or something like that. So Jenna Marbles is like now sitting there going, well, I don't want my content to hurt anyone, even though it didn't offend anyone back in 2011. It offends people now. You can't be funny and not offend somebody. You can't do anything. Even this video I'm doing right now, talking about how I think cancel culture needs to be canceled. Cancel culture needs to be canceled because people are going to get offended by it. You can't keep pulling. It's one thing to pull a receipt if someone says something that's very inconsistent or something. It is completely different if a person said something or did something 10 years ago, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, and you're holding them accountable now, even though there's no current things of those actions. Even the thing that happened with James Gunn. Was it disgusting what he said? Yes. Was also years ago. He's not the same person. The reason why I don't like cancel culture is because people are not letting people grow. They're not acknowledging the growth as a human being, and maybe these people are better people. And it's just getting ridiculous. If you're offended by something that was okay then don't watch it. Don't deal with it now. Now, if the person made something more recently and did it, and even Jenna, I saw things, she was like, I didn't even realize this was blackface. Because it's not blackface. Imitating somebody is not blackface. Or the thing that happened with like Nia Jackson wrestling, where she imitated how Asuka acts, and people were like, you're teasing Asians. No, she's not. She's imitating a person. White chicks is whiteface. Now, we also run into this new situation of, you are saying that people who aren't Caucasian cannot be can't be racist. That does not make sense. That is not the definition of the word. The word in the definition doesn't say, well, everybody, except for white people, everybody else gets a pass on being racist. If you deny someone a job simply because of the color of their skin, it doesn't matter if they're white, black, yellow, Asian, anything, that is racist. Okay? If you stop someone from doing something and they completely are capable, but you're stopping them because of how old they are, that's ageist. You should only be picking people and doing things on the merit of their skill. And yes, now, if a person is a very disgusting human being and things like that, yes, there's still a moral compass that does come into play. But Jenna Marbles has always been somebody who did a lot of, funny comedy stuff. You can't do comedy and not offend somebody. It's very, very hard. If you can, it's very limited and it's extremely hard. Because usually someone or something is the butt of the joke. But there's a difference between doing something in jest and doing something in malicious, like being malicious about it. I think it's messed up that she has to apologize and do stuff when you can clearly see she's grown as a person and she did it. And the fact that people keep, especially on this Twitter thing, they keep calling people out. My other problem is this. I remember the saying, don't throw stones in a glass house. A lot of these people that are calling out other people, same thing with the comic book industry, this whole pledge thing. I've been to a few conventions. I've seen some of you. You're pledging something and I've seen you. Now, I'm not going to get into details on who or anything like that, and I know I'm not the only person who's been to a con and experienced certain people doing certain things. But now you have people, and a lot of times when these people are calling these other people out, it's like, and when they're doing it so hard, a lot of their actions are there too. And they've done stuff, like the guy who did the Kick Vic thing, and now you find out that he thought people of color, especially black, weren't selling for anime and stuff, and it was a very racist statement because he's excluding black people from a place that could be a revenue stream for them simply because of the color of their skin. But it's too many people with this huge high moral high ground that really honestly you don't have, and you should not be on that platform for it. Yes, you can call people out for when they do something stupid, but you also need to learn how to forgive when people do something. Like, they're talking about, Jimmy Kimmel might step away because he did something 20 years ago and people are now mad about it now. And then I'm seeing some people, and I think I saw the Quarterings video where he said something too, where he's like, okay, people are offended because of their grandparents or something. I don't really agree with that. You shouldn't be offended for other people unless it's something to be offended for. He didn't do that to go, hey, look at this. He didn't have the over-exaggerated lips. Really, go look at what blackface actually is. Putting on the skin of someone to imitate a person to do something is not actually the same. His intention wasn't to sit there and call and, downgrade the black community or to sit there and do it. He was making fun of Karl Malone. It would have been the same thing as if he was just telling the joke and making fun of Karl Malone. She was imitating Nicki Minaj because Nicki Minaj was wild, back then, so she was imitating her. But I'm noticing that especially a lot of the people in the communities, they're not calling out the Wayans brothers. They're not calling out Eddie Murphy. They're not calling out Richard Pryor. They're not calling out these other comedians. They're not calling out a lot of the women comedians who use a lot of I guess they would be called like gay slurs and language and things they tweeted. And I'm not trying to call anyone out. I'm just pointing out there's an inconsistency here. You can't keep focusing on men or focusing on this or focusing on that. As a society, yes, if you want life to improve, I'm not disagreeing with that. But we got to calm down a bit on this whole, well, you did something 10 years. Like, there should be a cutoff. To me, here's my thing. If you haven't done that thing in the last, like, 4 to 5 years, really it shouldn't be getting brought up. And if it is, it should be, hey, you know, that was a different time. I'm a different person. I explained myself. And then that's it. And drop it. You're having Kevin Hart not be able to do one of his dreams because of something he did in 2008. You're having Jenna Marbles now might have destroyed her YouTube channel, which is one of the inspirations to me for YouTube, because of something she did in 2011. You can't keep calling people out, especially if they apologized or they say, hey, this wasn't my intention. No, what happens is a person apologizes and they could really mean it. Then they go, no, not good enough, not good enough, not good enough. No, there comes a point. So this is what I'm going to say. If I say something or I send out a hot tweet or something that's out of line and I say it's out of line and I apologize for it or talk about it or say, hey, you know what, I've realized this is out of line, that's the time you're going to get that apology. Don't bring it up 10 years later, because I'm going to probably tell you to go take a long walk off of a short pier or something and maybe go for a swim and cool off. Keep protagonists, stay safe, stay healthy, stay real. Hey, thank you for visiting my channel. This is the Geek Protagonist. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share. Please, it'll really help me out on the channel if you actually share these videos. If you like what I'm doing, please hit that bell notification. Hit it, click. This way you won't miss any of my videos. Also, there's a thing on there that says personal and all. Hit the all. This way you'll get them every time for the notifications. I'm trying to, grow, trying to do commentary about what's going on. And I want to thank you again. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay real. This is the Geek Protagonist. I'm out, and I'll see you.